Welcome to Right Out Loud. We're back yet again. Another episode, another fun episode. As always, I'm joined by the suave, sophisticated, special, stellar, and sensational Christine.
Yes, the alliteration. I love it.
I know you do. I know you do. And I have to point to that because I just love it too.
Yeah.
But we're actually extremely excited because we are welcoming back one of our friends of the podcast, Erin Galloway, Director of Publicity at Berkeley Publishing. Welcome back, Erin.
Oh, thank you so much for having me again. It is a treat to be back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we thought that we would have you back to talk just a little bit around some of the upcoming things that you'd like to promote, some of the works that are coming out, and then also maybe talk just a smidge about some of the trends in publicity and like getting the word out about your novel. So let's jump right in, shall we?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at the moment, what is really working publicity-wise is still some things that are going to be very familiar. Obviously, if you can get your book out there to local newspapers, regional or national newspapers, that's always great. If you can work with your local TV or radio station, amazing. These are sort of thought of as like your basics, the classics, what will hopefully always be there on the media landscape. And in terms of what is currently popular, that is very much still in the book talk, bookstagram space, which very much overlaps with my colleagues in the marketing team who do a lot of outreach there. And there's so much overlap because there's plenty of people that have a TikTok account and also have a blog or also write for a major publication or an online outlet. Even the kind of major women's magazines have their own, not only .com side, like yourgoodhousekeeping.com, cosmopolitan.com, people.com, etc. Those all have their own social media avenues as well. So for me as a publicist, it's figuring out what kind of combination of things could help my author. For example, are we doing a cover reveal on people.com or on today.com? Or are we working with those outlets to maybe do the reveal on their social media? Because, of course, the ability to share that reveal becomes exponential when you're talking about sharing it across Instagram, particularly if we're talking about an author that already has a high follower count. But if you are someone who is just getting started, people.com probably is not going to be the place for your first cover reveal to happen. And that is okay. There are other options. And a lot of times the cover reveal that we all think of as very splashy isn't even the most important thing for a new author to do, because until you've developed a following, no one knows to look for your cover. Right. So it's a lot more advantageous to work on building your audience. And that can certainly be done on social media, where you develop community with your readers or potential readers that you think might be interested in the books that you're writing. That can be done by contributing guest pieces to better known websites. Is that a kind of bookish site like Book Riot? You know, if you're writing thrillers or mysteries, maybe it's working with one of the popular mystery blogs like a Crime Reads or a Criminal Intent. There's so many avenues that you have to go down. And if you have a publicist, they can help walk with you down all of those avenues or guide you.
Yeah.
Because when we have an author who's newer and would love a cover reveal, we might not always be able to get a big outlet right away, but maybe we can work with an outlet that has a newsletter and they really love the stunning cover image that our author has. Like, is it a particularly gorgeous image? Great. Maybe we can get a newsletter that would like to include it. We've tried lots of different things. It's always an adventure trying to do something like that. And sometimes our point as publicists is, what's the goal here? If the goal is to build your pre-orders, if the goal is to get recognition and attention, then we might want to try different things. For a really well-established author, yes, we're going to do a splashy cover reveal because that might, net us a couple thousand pre-orders immediately. I mean, I'm assuming that Stephen King, get all those pre-orders immediately. I know that's true for Nora Roberts as an example. So when we're talking about an author of that bestseller level, great. Almost anything that you do is going to be fantastic. But if you are talking about an author that's earlier in their career, well, if they are established enough that they have a really solid audience, but they're trying to build their newsletter list, okay, we'll start really gassing your audience up on social media. Hey, if you subscribe to my newsletter, I'm going to do a special cover reveal on date X, subscribe now. That can be really effective. Maybe the author isn't as concerned about their newsletter, but really wants to do the reveal on their own social media as a way to continue building community with their own audience. Fabulous. Go for it. Maybe they're so new that they really need any kind of community to pay attention to them. Okay, well, do you have author friends that would like to help you do a reveal? Do you have a relationship with someone that runs a newsletter? Or are you willing to trust your publicist and have a good conversation with them about what your goals are and see if you can find a place that is reasonable for where you are in your career? Another opportunity is maybe we don't do the cover reveal. Maybe instead what we do is an exclusive first look or sneak peek, aka an exclusive excerpt.
Yes.
And we get that on a bigger site because we choose a really spicy excerpt that a larger website might like, or a particularly emotional one. Does your book have to do with a mother-daughter relationship? Could we run it around Mother's Day? There's a lot of options if you are willing to get creative and have a discussion with your publicist.
And I think something you said I want to kind of circle back to, you were talking community.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're new to building that community, whether that is reaching out to a writers group that you are a part of, or other authors that you may have interacted with, exchanging some things. Maybe there's somebody who is brand new to the scene at the same time you are, exchange newsletters. In other words, okay, I'll do a cover reveal in my newsletter for your book and vice versa.
Yep.
Let's drum up some, but community also in the sense where I was talking to Matt earlier about how an author today just kind of said on Threads, hey, I'd like to go, what are the book podcasts? I'd like to make an appearance. And I was just like, hey, I have a podcast. I'll shamelessly promote ours. And she said yes right away. So it's kind of a matter of being there, participating in the community, building your community and that. So I think you just even saying the word community sparked a ton of things with me. So I think that's really fantastic. The other thing I want to comment, and I wish I could remember which author it was, and it's a big name author too, and I just it's completely gone at the moment. But Berkeley and Berkeley Romance, both handles on, and I happen to be on Threads at the time. They may have done it on other social media as well. but they were kind of going back and forth about this cover reveal, and they weren't saying who it was. I had to go to that thread and go through and like, what are they doing? I mean, you can really attract attention. I mean, that's something actually, other people can do, like with a friend or something like that, or with another author. These are things that you're suggesting that any author at any level can take and kind of look at it and go, okay, how can I do that? I'm not big. I'm not going to get the people.com reveal, but what can I do in my community that will get them to either my newsletter? Like, I think what you said about newbies, drawing attention to their newsletter and getting people to sign up for it with a special offering inside the newsletter. Like you said, whether that's the cover reveal, a small excerpt. I actually had one of my authors do an exclusive short story of a couple that like started it all for her. And that was really huge too. So I think these are super great ideas for an author at any level.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
My hope is that this is all scalable for people.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that's why Matt and I love having you on, is that you have ideas that aren't just, oh, this is the only way to do this.
Right.
The things that you offer and let us know about what you're doing are things that I think other authors can scale to as well. So, yeah.
It's also cool too, because we had an episode all about cooperating and not competing. And you hit it on the head, right? If you have author friends, like lift each other up. Even if you don't know who this other author is, lift them up, right? If you appreciate their work or whatever, because there's enough to go around. There's more than enough to go around. So don't ever look at other authors or other activities they're doing as like competing and taking away your readers, because that's just not the case. So I love that. I love that advice.
I think staying on the same vein of trends, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing trends for, specifically for fiction, the genre fictions? Because I know that's your area. And I'm not necessarily saying what are the editors looking for. That's not it at all. But just what are you seeing as a publicist kind of becoming the trends, being the trends? Oh, yes, we've got this here and that. Can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, it's funny because trends, like people ask all the time, like, what's going to be the next thing? And I'm like, man, if I knew, I would be charging so much money as a consultant. I would be richer than Midas right now. So I can never predict, but there are certain things that you start to pick up on, and it often starts with what comes in, like what editors start getting in on submission, because there's always something in the water. Like, I don't know how it happens. I joke that like all the authors go and have a meeting. That's not really what's happening, but it's like there are these zeitgeisty moments where certain things just start to bubble. And it's probably a combination of what's happening culturally, what's happening politically, what else is out there in pop culture. And somehow all of that goes together in like this bubbling cauldron, and out come certain themes or subgenres or just ideas that have, kind of bubbled up, and they've taken on a new life in one way or another. Rarely is something brand new, never been seen before in fiction. Like all stories have certain roots or tropes or conventions that we know. And that's why we read them, because we love those and they are comforting, particularly in genre fiction. So like one easy example in recent history, this is still going on, but it really started to bubble a couple of years ago, is like female-centric horror. And as a person who admittedly does not like pursue a lot of spooky reading, because I am like a wimp at heart, I remember thinking like, what is this? What is it that has like female-centric horror? Like, what is that really about? What's so interesting about it? And I was approaching it more from, I guess you could say, like a sociological perspective. Like I was really genuinely curious at what speaks to women about horror. And so I started asking friends because, I mean, in fact, most of the people in my department regularly read horror. And so I started asking, like, what is it that attracts you? And I mean, a lot of people just like to be scared. Fair enough. But I think once they started to say to me, Erin, it's a safe place to experience fear, I went, oh, got it. That immediately I was like, yep, understood. It's the same reason that I can watch Criminal Minds, because it's a safe place to watch another person experiencing fear and perhaps the worst moments of their life. And unless you are someone that's been murdered, coming out on the other side. But I don't have to experience that personally. And being a female identifying human, like just the knowledge that sometimes walking outside of your own home, can be a risk. And then you think about historically marginalized populations and the fear that they feel, again, just walking outside of their homes. I think there is something in horror that allows you to process that in a way that you can't in other genres. So it makes a lot of sense. And there's been more and more horror recently written by women about the experiences that we have. And I think those are incredible. Some that have explored like female friendships and the complicated nature of them. I'm thinking of authors like Rachel Harrison and Alexis Henderson. Sometimes like Alexis has brought like witches in. There's all sorts of interesting ways that you can explore that. But that's like in particular a trend. And kind of staying with the horror theme, another trend that we've experienced a lot of at Berkeley is, what someone recently said to me, like cultural horror. And I thought that was a great way to put it. But really what this friend of mine was talking about is the idea of novelists finding ways to bring their own cultural histories into the novels that they are writing. So, for example, we have Nick Medina, who writes books that are this like wonderful blend of thriller and horror. Like they have all that tension and that foreboding that comes with thriller and horror novels. And he also incorporates like myths and folklore from indigenous communities and talks about the issues that are faced by Native communities today. So in particular, the epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous women who, of course, go missing and are murdered in like disproportionately high numbers, and whose tragedies are covered so little by the media in comparison to their white counterparts. So Nick is able to explore like important current themes like this. Another author would be Amanda Jayatissa. So Amanda's Island Witch really talks about like it is rooted in Sri Lankan folklore. And so that's kind of also a mix of like thriller and horror and historical. And it's really interesting because you get a whole new perspective. It's a genre you already love if this is something you read within, but you're getting a fresh perspective on the story and likely learning something that you didn't already know. Isabel Cañas is another great example. Her novels, The Hacienda and Vampires of El Norte, these are female-centric horror set in 19th century Mexico after the Mexican War for Independence. And they've got like a gothic feel. And I mean, everything that she's doing, if you're reading and really getting what's happening, then you can kind of see like what she has set up is like, what do the vampires represent? And I don't want to give too much away, but you can really understand like the incredible analogies that the authors set up, and you can enjoy it just as a scary story, but you can also read like the deeper themes and context. It's there.
And that's actually something that in previous episodes, Matt and I have explored a little bit, the idea that fiction yes, can entertain and do what it is supposed to do.
Yes.
But it can also teach.
Yeah.
I have often called it the back door to learning. And just those books that you were just talking about, I'm like, tell me more. Because I love the idea of being entertained at the same time as learning something that now, while I was aware of the missing and Indigenous women, don't know much more than, you know, this is a problem. And so to me, I'm like, ooh, that is quite a mind that can take that fiction aspect and also teach at the same time. But it was actually a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact quote, but Shonda Rhimes said that if you can entertain, you can teach.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're speaking to with those. And I'm so happy to see that as a trend, you know, and especially with the diversity.
Yeah.
I mean, even just the authors that you were just talking about, you know, a very diverse crowd.
There's such variety, not only in terms of like setting, but author background. I mean, folklore like is such a rich place to plumb for stories. And particularly because so many of these are oral tradition. And if you are not part of the community that has been able to hear those stories passed down, you wouldn't be aware of them. Right. So this is a way for you to learn and appreciate and also honor that particular culture's heritage. So it's very cool. And like I said, I am not the biggest scary reader because I am a wimp at heart. So now I feel the need to give you some warmer and fluffier trends.
Yes, that's right.
And one of those is, of course, the sports romance, because I don't think that ever goes out of style.
No.
But it has experienced like a nice uptick particular year, which is amazing. And one thing that I think remains a fave is, of course, the hockey romance.
Yes.
I mean, we all love a hockey romance, which is a little bit of a joke, right? Because they're covered in padding.
Oh,
you don't even know what these men look like on the ice. But
so true.
But for whatever reason, I mean, it is a very physical sport. It's highly competitive. I think that can be an attractive quality in a partner. So we have a really fun hockey series from Bal Khabra. And that first book that released earlier this year is Collide. And I mean, this is like all the things you want in a book, right? It's spicy. It's got the angst. They're young and in college. It's enemies to lovers. I mean, it's all the things that you want. And if you've already read that and you're like, okay, but I want more, well, have no fear, because the second book is out at the very end of January. And this is also, this is kind of an opposites attract where it's called Spiral. And we have a ballerina and a hockey player. I mean, can you get any better, right?
Yes.
Like they enter a fake dating arrangement to serve both of their purposes. And wouldn't you know, the whole fake dating starts to feel a bit more real than it should.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we love.
That's amazing.
So like so fun. And another really fun sports romance is well, at least I think, is our Formula One series by Simone Soltani. And some people might be familiar with Formula One, which is, of course, like European super fast, fancy race car driving, because maybe you watch like Netflix's Drive to Survive, which has gotten quite popular. But Formula One romance is pretty new. Like, I think we might be the first traditional publisher to have published an F1 romance. We might, or at least close to it. So it's still quite new in terms of traditional publishing. And Simone's series is so much fun. So it basically, what I will say is, if you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, this series is for you. Like, that's what I would recommend. And if we want to go in, I still think like can be very fun and light, but like a little bit darker. Then, of course, we have monster romance. I mean, come on. You already had Ruby on. So I realized that like Bull Moon Rising and the Ice Planet Barbarian books like need no introduction.
Yes.
But absolutely delightful. And I think I think a monster romance at heart is just about the very simple story of being loved and accepted for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That is a wow.
Jail was old this time.
Yeah. Well, that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's a really unique perspective. I really didn't see monster romances in that way, but you're really right. After having read Ruby's stuff, it really is just about acceptance.
Yeah.
For the differences and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think
I love it.
whoever the quote unquote monster is in the story, whichever partner that may be, that individual also helps their romantic counterpart find some sort of freedom or acceptance in their own right. Because they're mirrors, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really special, which I absolutely love. And if you do like monster romance and you're looking for another, because I think what Ruby does beautifully is gives you like a little bit of a lighter version of that, like humor's involved, which is really fun, but still plenty steamy. And if you like steamy and a little lighter, then I would also recommend Lana Ferguson's Lock and Key, which is a shape-shifting Loch Ness monster falls in love with a Kelpie.
Oh, wow.
As you do.
Oh.
Wow.
I mean, good fun.
Yes.
And I just think that's what's so enjoyable about monster romance. Like, it is meant to be unapologetically, unabashedly, like, fun, sexy, entertaining, and also give you that sweet spot of feeling accepted for exactly who you are.
Yeah. And I also think the other thing for me, I'm going to age myself here. I have been reading romance since I was 14. I mean, that's quite a long time. This is actually something brand new. So to me, all these stories, like you just saying a Loch Ness monster and a Kelpie, and I'm like, have I read a story like that before? I don't think so.
Nope.
That's what I love. We get to experiment all the time with romance. And I feel like I would be remiss if I did not talk about Romantasy at least a little bit, because it is so popular right now. And you know what's kind of, I guess, funny to me as a long-standing romance reader is Romantasy is not brand new. Like, it didn't start last year.
Right.
Or the year before. Romantasy has been around for a very long time, decades, in fact. But we didn't use that term. I do love the term because I think it is a great descriptor of what this genre is, and people understand it now by using descriptor, which is fantastic. And that is why we have descriptors like Romantasy. But for me, I'm really looking for ways to engage new readers that might not know they are Romantasy readers.
Right.
And look, if you read Sarah J. Maas or you read Wing, and why am I blanking on the author's name?
Is that Rebecca?
Yes, Yarros. Thank you.
Yes.
If you read those two authors, you are a Romantasy reader. Now, maybe you haven't read other Romantasy yet, but there's plenty of it out there for you to fall in love with. If you're a YA reader, you probably are quite familiar with Romantasy because it has been popular in YA for some time. But in the adult space, if you're someone that already loves the world building of paranormal romance, well, great. You're probably already really well positioned to enjoy Romantasy, because Romantasy has a lot of the tropes and the themes and the conventions that those of us who love romance and paranormal romance and likely fantasy, all of the things that we love, like simple examples like Heroic Quest, The Chosen One, Opposites Attract, Fated Mates, like all of those things, enemies to lovers, all of those things are very much involved in the Romantasy sphere. And I think Romantasy has that angst that comes with high stakes. And that's what we all love. Like, if you're a fantasy reader, you love high stakes. That's why you're reading these. And Romantasy has that as well. I think something that I love about novels with an epic quest, a heroic journey, you get to spend a longer period of time with these characters. You get to know them better. You feel what they are feeling. You are living this life with them. And that's exciting. And you just want to go back over and over again, right? So we've got some exciting romantasies coming up. Just off the top of my head, we have one by Sarah Hawley called Servant of Earth. And Sarah, folks may already know as a fun, like witchy rom-com author. And this is a much darker look at a fae kingdom where a human woman is not planned, winds up as an indentured servant, really, in a fae kingdom. And she is put in a position where she must help a fae princess a series of trials. And that is not an easy task. And she finds herself in enormous danger, kind of caught up in an unlikely rebellion. And it is extraordinary to watch her come into her own power. And I think the reason that I felt so drawn to this book in particular is there's a reason for her to be as strong as she is. There's a reason for her to have such incredible survival instincts, because as a human, she had to scrape and scrimp just to have food. I mean, she's been half starving for years. So the idea that she's put in a place of extreme danger and literally willing to do anything to survive, of course she is. She's already been doing that her whole life. So her badassery feels entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
And if you want to look back, like this is the other thing that I keep telling people, Romantasy's been around a long time. If you're a reader that thinks, well, I do like a lot of what is out here, but I'm also like open to reading some other books, and maybe you've read so much of what's currently out, you've run out of things to read, then the books that I always tell people to go back to are Anne Bishop's Black Jewels trilogy, which to me, top of the heap in terms of romantasy.
Yeah. And I think
incredible.
Yeah. I think, you know, something that you touched on earlier, the idea that romantasy's been out there for a long time.
Yeah.
But using that term romantasy actually allows, you know, like you said, the crossover of fantasy readers, of, you know, all these different readers that didn't know that these books were out there.
Yeah.
You know, because they're the same. They just have a new way of looking at them. And I think there's a lot of readers that maybe might not have looked at these books prior because they think, this is in the romance category and it's not going to be appealing to someone that doesn't read that. But I think romantasy, it's kind of like the romantic thriller where, you know, suspense thriller, those readers tend to have some crossover readers from suspense thriller mystery. And I think fantasy is one of those. You're not going to get a lot of crossover with like contemporary romance or historical romance. Some, but not the big umbrellas that romantasy can certainly bring in.
Right.
So, wow, that's quite a list, Erin. And I think I saw Matt taking notes. So we'll have all of those links up there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you're excited about that you didn't mention that you want to get in there, or?
Oh, I just have to share this tidbit. I don't know if this makes me kind or mean that I'm sharing it this far in advance, but I read it recently and I just have to share because it is so damn fun. We have a book coming out next summer by the wonderful Olivia Dade. And this book is called ZomRomCom. Oh, one word. ZomRomCom. And it is exactly what you think it is. And it is magnificent. Like if you're wondering, how can you put zombies and a romance together and make it funny? Well, the answer is just have Olivia Dade do it. But it is truly so special. Like I had the chance to ask her about writing it this summer. And when she said to me, like, I wanted to write something fun and joyful and funny. I was like, well, you achieved that.
Yeah,
it is
great.
so damn fun, so funny. A lot of people probably know Olivia already from writing wonderful contemporary romances, and she's at the forefront of fat positivity in romance. And of course, we have a full-bodied heroine in this book. And I'm just so excited for people to see like this new paranormal series come out from her, because you can tell how much fun she had writing it. And like I said, I don't know if it makes me kind or mean that I'm telling you this far in advance because it doesn't come out until August. But I can promise anybody listening that it is going to be worth the wait, because I just cackled like throughout reading it. And then when I met her in person, I wanted to tell her all the things that made me laugh. And it was just a delight. I'm really excited for readers to get their hands on that one.
That's so awesome.
Well, good. I was just going to,
Yep.
Matt is going to get them all down.
Yep. We
and
got them.
Put up, I'm sure it's probably already up for pre-order, isn't it? Or is it?
It should be, or it might be by the time this episode.
Maybe.
We'll get it up there. Whenever it comes up
Yep.
for pre-order, we'll put the link in so people don't forget about it. Because I certainly want to read a zombie rom-com.
Rom-com,
Yes.
Yeah.
So fun.
That's awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much. I know we have a timeline here for you, so we want to respect that as well. But it is a delight having you on, because we learned so much and we are finding so many books that we get to look forward to. So thank you for sharing with us very, very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Always happy to talk books.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, Erin, for joining us, and thanks for listening. Keep on writing, keep on creating, keep on sharing it with the world. We'll talk to you next time. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We really hope that you're enjoying every bit of it, but we would love to hear your feedback. Drop us an email either to matt@writeoutloudpod.com or Christina@bookmatchmaker.com. We would love to hear your thoughts. What's working, what's not working, and what do you want to hear more of? Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.